Hello dear students, how are you all? Welcome to One Page Biology. In today's video, I will be talking about the basic introduction on classification systems which were made to classify the organisms. So let's begin with the video, dear students. Now dear students, as you can see on the screen that there is some picture related to the old history. Now initially, dear students, the classification system was made by humans themselves, and you may wonder what was this classification system. This classification system was basically completely non-scientific because definitely at that time there was no advanced instruments or technology to classify or to study the organisms. So that classification system was non-scientific. That was mainly done by humans for their own benefit, or you can say for their own purpose, mainly to obtain the basic requirements of food, clothing and shelter from different organisms. Now dear students, after that the first initial attempt or you can say the first scientific attempt of classification was done by the very famous scientist. His name was Aristotle. Now dear students, we all know that he is also known as the father of biology. Now, dear students, Aristotle had done a classification of plants and animals both, but that was majorly a very simple type of classification. For example, in case of plants, he had classified the plants into three basic groups. Those were nothing but trees, shrubs and herbs. Now, these three groups were made mainly based on their external features. Right, so basically in terms of the height, we all know that trees are the longest. In terms of the in case of mainly they are a little short, say, and the smallest ones are basically the herbs. Now after this, dear students, there was another attempt of classification which was made by the very famous scientist. His name was Carolus Linnaeus. Now dear students, now Carolus Linnaeus had basically classified the plants by studying the external morphological characters. When I say external morphological characters, we mean mainly the outside or the external features of the plant. Now what kind of characters he had considered? The characters were like basically the habitat of the plant, right? So for example, whether the plant is growing in a very moist environment, or you can say it is growing in a desert. So basically he had considered the habitat for classifying the plants. At the same time, he had also considered the morphological character like the color of leaves as well as the number of leaves, right? But dear student, this was not a very advanced type of classification because there were many drawbacks in this. So the one of the drawbacks was this classification system separated even the closely related species. Like for example, on the screen as you can see that there are two different plants like tomato and brinjal. Now dear students, these plants are quite related to each other. They have many similarities when we talk about their vegetative characters, but basically under Carolus Linnaeus classification they were put into separate groups, right? So this was one of the drawbacks, that even the closely related species were placed under different groups. Also, another drawback of this classification was equal weightage was given to both the vegetative and reproductive characters. Now we all know that vegetative and reproductive structures of the plants are very different. So two or more plants can have similar vegetative structures but different reproductive structure. So they can't be given equal weightage during classifying them, right? So that's why this was again a drawback of Carolus Linnaeus system. After this, there were two other scientists who made another attempt for classification. Their name was George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker. Now the classification system, dear students, which was made by them is also very famously called as natural system of classification. Scientists George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker had considered the natural affinities during classification of organisms. What do we mean by natural affinities? Dear students, natural affinities means the similarities between the organisms. So we can say that the two organisms, if they have maximum similarities in terms of their internal characters or external features, we can say that they are highly similar and they can be placed under a common group. Also considered the internal features. So this was the highlight of their classification. So basically the internal characters, like for example the ultrastructure of the cell. For example, what do we mean by ultrastructure? Ultrastructure means the internal structure of the cell. So they studied the cytoplasm of the cell, they studied the nucleus of the cell, they studied the organelles of the cell. They also considered, they studied the embryos of different organisms. They compared their embryos, they compared the similarities and differences in the embryos of different organisms. Such a field is called as embryology, my dear students. As well as they also studied the anatomy of different organisms. Anatomy means the internal structures of different organisms, right? And as far as the plants are concerned, they also studied the various compounds which are secreted by the plants, and that field is called as phytochemistry. So in phytochemistry we study about different chemicals which are present in the plants. In the year 1969, Robert Whittaker, the entire name is Robert Harding Whittaker, he made a proper 5 kingdom classification system, dear students. Now this classification system is a proper, or you can say a well defined classification system, majorly because Robert Whittaker had used different criterias for classifying the organisms. What were the different criterias? He had considered something like the cell structure, the mode of nutrition, the phylogenetic relationship, the thallus organization, as well as the reproduction of the organism for classifying the organisms. When we talk about, dear students, the phylogenetic relationship, it majorly involves studying the similarities and differences between the organisms, and based on that we can even find out their common ancestor. So such was the criteria which was used by Robert Whittaker for classifying the organisms, and by using these criteria he had made 5 basic kingdoms, which are nothing but kingdom Monera, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Protista, kingdom Plantae, and kingdom Animalia. So dear students, I have covered the basic introduction of classification of organisms in this video. If you have understood the video, please like, share and subscribe to One Page Biology, and do share with your friends, dear students. I will be coming up with more and more biology related videos for you all. Till that time, take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.